Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. And Tyson, we're back, baby. NFL Week 3 recap. And man, this was a very interesting weekend. We got a bunch to get into. I mean, there's teams who are much worse than we thought, teams who are much better than we thought coming in. And it's the NFL, man. It delivers every single time as we got a lot to break down.
Yeah, and it's important to keep in mind that football is always going to be a little sloppy and doesn't matter as much. But we're seeing some things, Brad, from some of these teams that we thought were going to be good. And I'm ready to throw in the towel on a couple of them.
Well, one of the teams for me, Tyson, I got to say here, as we move into Just Say It and get our rant out of the way, the Jacksonville Jaguars are bad. I mean, this is a bad operation, and something that we pointed to for a long time just about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think their ownership is bad. They're more focused on London and maximizing profits than building a football team that actually can compete on the field. Outside of 2 years, what have the Jacksonville Jaguars done? And then you try to hire these coaches that they're popping in the headlines, right? Go get Tom Coughlin, doesn't work. Go get Urban Meyer, doesn't work. Oh, let's go get Doug Peterson. And for some short term, it works. Trevor Lawrence, though, Tyson, the biggest issue with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's not a top 15 quarterback in this league. I mean, just watch him last night. Perfect play action call. There's a guy 20 yards, 25 yards middle of the field, has tons of time, tons of room in the pocket, and airmails him. Trevor Lawrence has now lost 8 or 9 games in a row. That does not scream generational. That does not scream elite. That does not scream a quarterback who's an MVP candidate and a quarterback that's going to take a team and compete in the AFC. I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tyson, and we made fun of them when they drafted Brian Thomas because there are way more holes on that roster than apparently anybody in that building thought. Trent Baalke, all we need is just one wide receiver. Then I see Jacksonville Jaguars fans complaining about the offensive line. It's not the offensive line's fault. I mean, sure. Is it the Detroit Lions? Is it the Eagles? No. But there have been resources put into the offensive line. The defense is soft. The culture is soft under Doug Peterson. The quarterback has regressed every single year he's been in this league. And this team is not one that you can take seriously going forward. I am completely out on the Jags from an operational standpoint. I'm out on the season 0-3. They're not going to make the playoffs again. Good riddance to the Jags.
Welcome to this side of the table. I've been sitting here by myself talking shit about Trevor Lawrence for 6 years now, it feels like. And last night certainly opened people's eyes to some of the things that I feel like I've been saying for a while. I felt like I was taking crazy pills, and not that I'm the end all be all here, but it's been on tape for a long time now. Like the guy had 5 really good weeks in 2022, essentially, but it was Urban Meyer, right, that ruined him. And so you give him a little grace period. He looks better in the second half of 2022. They come back, they win the playoff game, and then they collapse last year. So one more time, Brad, I'm going to say it. He's been the same player since he was 18 years old, and that's exactly who it looked like last night. But I'm going to go an opposite way from you on this one. And I understand I am the preeminent Trevor Lawrence hater. I don't know how much of this is his fault and how much, then I think that there's a sizable portion of blame that should be assigned to him versus how much of this is the Jacksonville Jaguars' fault, and specifically that Doug Peterson culture that you mentioned, because this is happening every year without fail across the NFL, that a retread offensive-minded head coach gets hired to fix a quarterback, to fix an offense, to elevate something, and they galvanize the troops, right, in year one. And then all of a sudden, year 2 comes, they look a little worse. Well, that's okay. Year 3, they look a little worse. And then all of a sudden, you got to hang up the whistle. I mean, how many Doug Petersons, how many Frank Reichs, how many Hugh Jack, like the list goes on and on and on for some of these retread offensive minds. And look, there's problems with retread head coaches everywhere, but Todd Bowles looked pretty good in Tampa Bay over the last couple of years. Dan Quinn has the Commanders at 2-1, just to name some defensive guys that maybe didn't get a fair shake because they don't call plays, and you can't win without a head coach that calls plays because Kyle Shanahan has so many Super Bowl. Oh, my bad. Yeah, it feels like like you can't put all your eggs into the basket of somebody who's already been figured out by the league, and that was evident at the end of Doug Peterson's tenure in Philadelphia. It was evident at the end of Frank Reich's tenure in Indianapolis, and it's like, let's get this guy to help Bryce Young. Let's get this guy to help Trevor Lawrence. And so I think some of that blame gets put on them. But Brad, one of the bigger reasons to me is like Doug Peterson in particular, his coaching network is tiny, right? Like some of these guys, they like when you only have Press Taylor to rely on, or you only have Matt Nagy to rely on, right? It becomes really hard to get new ideas, to get some of these innovative, fun things happening in the NFL. We made fun of everybody for just, oh, that guy washed balls for the Rams, get him on the staff, right? Now Kubiak looks like a killer. All these guys all over the league. KOC is killing stuff over in Minneapolis. So maybe we overreact a little bit to that, but I can't sit here and watch another 57, 61-year-old offensive-minded head coach who hasn't innovated anything since the tunnel screen was invented. Right? I mean, Doug is running, let's run 5-second vertical routes, screens, and then when we finally get an intermediate play and Trevor Lawrence misses, we'll just not go back to that. And yeah, the game was out of hand. Brian Thomas was a deep threat at LSU because they had Malik Neighbors. In 2022, they were both there, kind of before the superstar status. His bread and butter was the middle of the field work, and he was able to take those things to the house. And so now just to get this guy and then say, you know what, you and Gabe Davis both are going to run wind sprints today. This doesn't make any sense. We made fun of Jacksonville for drafting a wide receiver, but Brad, they might need another one.
Oh, God. I don't know. With Christian Kirk, I mean, we were talking about it. At least he finally emerged because they needed him last night. But, Tyson, you may have been on the island and trying to pull me in on the Trevor Lawrence thing, but I got to say, we're meeting in the middle, or at least meeting on the other side here, because I've been the one pushing the Doug Peterson stinks train, and I'm glad that you're coming around on my side. And you see the Eagles banner here. Tyson's blocking his Eagles jersey, but, we got the Eagles love, and we're always going to appreciate Doug Peterson for bringing that Super Bowl home. But, man, that was 6 years ago. Things are in the past, and he looks clearly in over his head. I don't think he plays a physical style of football, and I think the Jags are paying the price for it. So we'll see where they go from there. Tyson, we got to get into this armchair quarterback and discuss what happened around the league last week, what's been going on, giving people our thoughts as we just sit back from our luxurious couches and get to share our thoughts about what's going on, because we kind of teased it off the top. There are a lot of teams that are worse than what we thought. And we got to start with the Cincinnati Bengals, who have now moved to 0-3. We got to talk about the Cleveland Browns, who look like a complete disaster, losing to the New York Giants at home. I mean, my goodness. How about the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, who we just mentioned, them falling to 0-3, which is unacceptable. And we got to touch on the Cowboys, who moved to 1-2 after another disappointing start. So those are teams we want to talk about a little bit off the top here. I'll throw it to you. You take it where you want, and I'll jump in.
Let's just start with the Bengals, probably. I think that's freshest in everybody's mind after the Monday night loss to the Commanders at home last night. And it started beautifully, Brad. It was like, I know Washington goes down and scores right away, but that's kind of a 𝐿'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'Is like, oh, you score right away, but we're not letting you in the end zone again. That offense comes out and Jamar Chase, 60-yard bomb, and it's a touchdown, and we're partying. They miss Joe Mixon, my friend. They miss him a ton. I thought Zach Moss looked okay last night for the first time in a while. Chase Brown has juice, but again, it's like, how much juice can you really put on tape when everything's for 2 yards? And I just mentioned Press Taylor, and we're not the biggest Zach Taylor fans, but dude, this is stale and stagnant and gross in Cincinnati, and they're 0-3 with this cast. I mean, it feels weird. I'm a huge Joe Burrow fan. You're a huge Joe Burrow fan. We love a lot of the players on the Bengals. They're getting like significantly less heat than some of these other teams because the Bengals always start 0-2, and Joe Burrow's 1-9 in his first 2 weeks for the last 5 years. That's a coaching issue. Being 0-3 is a coaching issue. Losing to the Washington Commanders with a rookie quarterback in prime time in your house is a coaching issue. Like some of the penalties to lose to the Chiefs, that 15-yarder along the sideline, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have thrown the flag. That's a coaching issue. And so for how many – they had one really great season. They have been wildly disappointing every year around that, and we're still, much like with Trevor Lawrence, because he won 15 games at 18, it's like we're so late to jump onto the hate bandwagon. There's so many problems in Cincinnati that I feel like people aren't even discussing just because they have star power. And I'm sick of star power. Star power will win you games against the Carolina Panthers. That's it.
Well, the problem, I think, too, is this defense has taken a huge step back, too. And I love 𝐿'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I'I' spots, he's good. He had that insane interception, but he's been now at 2 weeks in a row where people just blow by him for touchdowns, which isn't a great sign, or at least deep plays. But no, I agree with you. I'll put it this way. I think 0-3 history is not on the side of the Cincinnati Bengals to make the playoffs. If that's the case, Zach Taylor will be out of work. This is a coach that Tyson and I had ripped previously. Then you're like, dude, they keep winning. They went to a Super Bowl without Joe Burrow. They kept it afloat. Like, at some point, you got to say Zach Taylor is at least a good coach. Now, where does he fall in the echelon of great coaches? I don't know if he ever got there, but I think he's a solid head coach. Now, the bad starts thing, something's got to be figured out, whether it's, just a soft training camp, whatever the case may be, bad game planning, I don't know. The thing is, the Bengals, because you said it's the star power, they could come on and win this division.
Yeah,
the Steelers, I think, is a house of cards. Like, that's, those, they got a tough schedule. This thing could completely collapse. And the Ravens, I don't know, there seems to be some issues there, but I don't know. Just the Bengals, something feels off there. I think you had a great term when you said it was stale and stagnant. They may need, I don't want to say a retread. It feels like they may go in that direction. Get somebody in that, it's the Bengals. They want to be conservative. That's just their nature, the owners, the Browns, who own the franchise. So we'll see. But, man, I agree with you. Shocking that they didn't win this game. And Tyson, they kind of got embarrassed. I mean, this thing was ugly, and it was ugly at half.
And look, Jaden Daniels makes a play to seal the game. It's 4th and 2, and the guy keeps the football. What did you think he was going to do? It's 4th and 2, and he dumps out after he kept the football. What did you think he was going to do? Those are the two plays that Cliff Kingsbury has put on tape consistently as his time in the NFL, and to not be prepared for those two things. I mean, it's a sprint out. We're getting Zach Ertz wide open in the middle of the field. Stuff like this just can't happen. I'm severely disappointed in the Cincinnati Bengals. We both were higher on them than necessary before the season because we were drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. But I mean, throw the batch out at this point, and we might end up coming on here in 6 weeks and going, well, the Bengals are 6-3, leading the AFC North, and nothing matters. But at this point, man, they look broken, but they don't look as broken to me as the Cleveland Browns.
Oh my God, the Browns are bad. And Tyson, I'm telling you, we are. You kind of said it tongue in cheek, I think, a little bit before, because Stefanski, I think for what the Cleveland Browns franchise has been to before. I mean, this thing has to completely fall off the rails. And it's not Stefanski's fault. I know he kind of was anti-Baker, but it's not his fault that the Haslams are morons as owners, and they went and got Deshaun Watson when nobody else in the world was going to touch him with a 10-foot pole, hell, even a 30-foot pole. Seriously, you get Deshaun Watson out of the equation because of his injuries. I mean, you bring Joe Flacco in off the couch. This thing looks great last year. They make the playoffs. And once again, Deshaun Watson comes back in. They underperform. This offense looks terrible. It's got to be Jameis Winston time. Like, I'm just going to keep harping on that. And we're not the biggest Jameis Winston guys here. He is immensely better right now than Deshaun Watson. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. The Browns are going to underperform unless they make the hard decision to go with Jameis Winston. This is a business. They made the wrong business decision by paying Deshaun Watson a once-in-a-lifetime contract in terms of guaranteed money, it being all guaranteed in the NFL. They made a mistake. It's time to own up to the mistake. The rich owners can eat the contract. You move on. So this team and the guys that are putting their bodies on the line have a short window in their careers, can actually compete with this roster and win a championship. It's ridiculous that the ownership had that they won't eat the money and do that. In my opinion, it's malpractice for owners to do that.
And I think you laid out the offensive side of the ball pretty well. Bro, this was a defense last year that was like, oh my gosh, you do not want to see the Browns. This defense is going to kill you. The Giants do one thing. They do one thing, and then it's throw the ball to Malik Neighbors. And he has 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns in the first half. And what are they going to do? What is Brian Daboll going to do with the lead? He's going to turn around and hand the ball off, like he did it 11 times in that magical season a couple of years ago for them. And to not be able to stop Devin Singletary, I mean, this guy has to slide to not score a touchdown at the end of the game, which, again, for what? Like, I understand that teams lose games sometimes, but you're going to go up to 11 before the extra point, you're fine. Game's over. But this was a tale of two halves for the Browns defense, but it was the tale of the last 2 years for the Browns offense. I mean, they look horrible. You pepper Amari Cooper with targets, that's fine. You can have 100 of them. None of them are catchable, right? Like, it's bad. Jerome Ford looks like, the Cinderella, lost her shoe or whatever. And then Donta Foreman, gets 2 carries or whatever this week. It's just a weird allocation of the way that they do things. And I think that if Kevin Stefanski has a job at the end of this year, I'm going to be surprised. And I know that they're not going to fire him. I've been saying for a while, I don't love this guy, and I don't think he's shown me anything outside of 6 weeks with Joe Flacco that's made me love this guy.
Well, I'm not the biggest guy either, but holy smokes! I mean, God, he'd be hired in a second. Imagine, I mean, the Jags would probably hire him in a second because I think they're going to fire Doug Peterson. But we talked about the Jags a little bit. Oh, seriously, I'm just going to drive this home here, Tyson. The Browns are currently right now 28th in the league in EPA per pass at negative 0.25. The only teams worse than them are the Bo Nix rookie-led Denver Broncos, Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans, rookie-led Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, and then recently benched Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. That's the type of situation we're talking about. It's crazy.
Is Bryce Young the only quarterback that's played this year that you can confidently say was worse than Deshaun Watson?
Man.
I think so.
I think so, too. I mean, Caleb's running around and getting killed by his offensive line.
But at least, like,
probably.
He's incomplete passes, it's like, oh, there's an NFL quarterback in there. Or like Will Levis does bonehead turnover plays, but like still has 250 and 2 at the end of the game. I mean, Deshaun gives you all the boneheaded plays and none of the upside, which you have a guy sitting on the bench who can do that way better, folks.
And I would say this, Anthony Richardson is probably pretty close to that.
Sure. I mean, he just hit 10 for 20. That's like an all-time Anthony Richardson completion percentage game.
He had some ridiculous throws, dude. I mean, holy smokes. Let's close up here with the bad teams before we talk about these rookie QBs. Let's talk about the Cowboys. I mean, 1 and 2, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb arguing on the sidelines. You know, we're not one here to blow things out of proportion. It's football. They're alpha males. There's going to be arguments on the sidelines, especially when things don't go wrong. But I thought that was notable that we're 3 games into this season. And that's happening on the sideline. When we just came removed, exactly, Tyson's putting up the money sign from both players looking for cash. It's all about me. It's the disease of me. It's not about the team and us falling apart again in the playoffs. It's about I want my money because I did this on the field. I, me. Well, what happens? You start 1 and 2. The offense doesn't look quite as good. The defense gets embarrassed by the Saints after a defensive coordinator change. Looks like, I don't know, Dan Quinn might have been the one holding this thing up with duct tape because all of a sudden the Commanders are 2-1 and the Cowboys defense is falling off. Where do you stand on the Cowboys?
Well, first of all, like to hire Mike Zimmer without having like elite safeties and elite linebackers was certainly a choice. Like this guy's made an entire career off of like having studs at those positions and knowing how to use them. So putting him in a position where he's not allowed to do that, or he has to use bad players, so like this was always going to happen. The biggest thing to me, Brad, is like both these losses are at home, and I know they lost by 3 to the Ravens. That was the most Dallas Cowboys Dak Prescott finish to a game ever, where it was like, oh, they're getting cooked. He looks horrible all day. And then all of a sudden they only lose by 3 and he puts up 350 yards and a couple touchdowns and everything is fine. This team is bad. Mike McCarthy is just obsessed with trying to run the football. And I, as a run the ball guy, I really appreciate that. We said before the season, look, it's not going to happen with Rico Dowdle. He would be the first one basically in the history of the NFL to have this little work through this many years in the NFL and pop off. It's not going to happen with an Ezekiel Elliott that you cut. Right? The 2 years ago, you cut because he couldn't play anymore. You have to bring him back and hand him the ball. CeeDee Lamb looks like Terrell Owens. Like he's just running around. He's mad the whole time. He's pouting, all that stuff. And look, it's week 3 and they're getting embarrassed at home again. I understand that because they were getting clamped for those first 3 quarters. Geno Stone is crushing people. Kyle Hamilton's flying around, and that Ravens defense is doing what they want. But this is the Dallas Cowboys. This is what they do. Is you're going to, at the end of the year, you're going to look at that box score and go, well, they only lost the Ravens by 3, and Dak had 350 yards because we forget about all of these things. There was a lot of we gave Jerry a little bit of guff when he was saying at a certain point, if you haven't shown me, you haven't shown me, because Dallas tried to Trey Lance out there in the preseason, and the kid had 500 turnovers. So it was like you need Dak Prescott in the building. But Jerry's also been around the game a long time, and I don't think he's very good at his job anymore, but I think he does know that Dak Prescott's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Dak Prescott's not a playoff game winning quarterback. and we did our preview show, and I said one of the Eagles and Cowboys isn't going to make the playoffs. I still don't know which one of those two it's going to be, but Dallas has the early lead here.
Eagles are better than Dallas. I said when we did our preview show, this thing could get off the rails quick. We're trending in that direction, man. I mean, they just paid Dak Prescott the highest paid contract for a quarterback in the history of the NFL. Tyson, they're 25th in the league in EPA per play. EPA per pass, 27th. That's just ahead of the Cleveland Browns we just absolutely dunked on. I mean, Anthony Richardson, who we'll kind of mention a little bit, 26th. Dallas is worse than that. Daniel Jones, 25th. I mean, holy smokes. This entire operation on offense has been horrible. And, yeah, defensively, there's a lot to be desired. And I mean, they got a lot of work to do. 20th in EPA. There's just a lot of questions that we had coming in about the Cowboys. And it comes back to the disease of me. It comes back to, oh, we want this, we want that. And just I think you're seeing what happens when you're not solely focused on what we can do to win football games. It's about what I deserve. It's about what I should get, all that. So let's close out Armchair Quarterback with a little rookie QB check-in. I mean, and this is coming off Jayden Daniels' incredible game against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it looks like the Washington Commanders have their guy. He looks good. Obviously, there's some concerns about the body, if it can hold up, but holy smokes, the dude's an accurate passer. Dude's a great thrower of the football, and he's mobile. Oh, boy. Right now, he's the early leader for the best in his class. And again, it's 3 weeks into these guys' career, so we're not going to make a proclamation about, oh, this guy sucks and this guy's bad. But, woo, it's been impressive for Jayden Daniels.
He's fearless, dude. I mean, that touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin to win the game, stands in there against zero pressure, takes one on the chin and delivers an absolute dime, dropping the bucket. I mean, you couldn't have walked down there and handed it to him in a better spot. That is who Jayden Daniels put on tape last year. I specifically had some concerns with the pressure to sack rate. I mean, he's still getting hit a ton. I'm still a little worried that he's going to explode on one of these. And then the other thing was maybe he doesn't layer the ball as well as he needs to. But I mean, the throw to Luke McCaffrey looked pretty good to me last night. The throw to Diami Brown looked pretty good to me. And again, we've given Cliff Kingsbury a lot of hate for the way he runs his offense. It looks pretty good right now for a team with a rookie quarterback and a bunch of brand new pieces kind of around him. And so for that part, it's awesome. Still worried about the longevity thing here, but and as you mentioned, it's only 3 weeks in. Last week we would have said, well, it's Penix or JJ McCarthy because all these guys stink. But Bo Nix finally had a game. He finally won. Yeah. He won. He looked okay. I mean, I'm hesitant to say he looked really good or really bad. I think he looked fine. He looked like a quarterback that can win an NFL football game, which is more than you can say for some of these guys so far. It's also the terminology that Bo Nix has to learn is probably a little longer and a little bit different than some of these other guys. So I'm encouraged by Bo Nix, especially utilizing the legs a little bit, which is something that he did well at Oregon. But, it was really more of the Auburn thing where it was like, damn, this guy's a real athlete. And then he's beating people to the pylon this weekend. So I was encouraged by that.
Yeah, no, Bo Nix, I thought, look, this is his best game. I don't think I'm going on a limb there by saying that. And to do it on the road against the Bucs team and Todd Bowles, who normally dials something up. Yeah, it dials something up and makes it difficult for rookies. That was impressive. I do think Bo Nix is going to work in the league. What his ceiling is, not sure. But I think with Sean Payton, we kind of saw the game plan. Get crossers, lean into the strengths. If something breaks down, let's go use the legs. And plus athlete he looked like. I mean, it's not going to be Lamar Jackson or Jayden Daniels, but the legs are more than capable of getting out of the pocket and moving it. Tyson, I got some numbers here. Now, I think everybody's, for some people don't like Caleb Williams. You can, whatever. That's your prerogative. Some people like him. Some people don't, whatever. Just don't let that cloud your judgment. Now, I think when it comes to this, he's second to last in total EPA for the quarterback position. That's negative 32.1. Bryce Young's worst at 36.5. Bo Nix, third to worst, 22.8 negative. So a lot of bad numbers here for Caleb Williams. Now, a lot of it's the turnovers, right? Making bad decisions, throwing across his body, that gets picked off. Some of them, though, I think there's miscommunication. He's trying to figure some things out. I don't necessarily think he's in a situation where he's being helped out very often.
He's playing at USC again. Hey, Caleb, go win us a football game. It's craziness.
The offensive line is so bad. I mean, the memes that are coming out of it, they're running 4th and goal with the speed option, and every single offensive line is on their back because they fell over and didn't block.
That picture is taken like 1 second after the snap. It's crazy. I mean, Shane Waldron sucks. We knew that before he got hired. And so I mean, Caleb's box score looks fine. I thought there were some real problems again I mean, Rome Odunze should have had 200 yards on Sunday, and Caleb missed him a handful of times. And the reason that, people don't like Caleb is he's back there and he's doing the, oh, my bad, as we know, dude, make a better throw. And that's going to come. I'm not super concerned with Caleb Williams. I think, talent for talent wise, he goes up. He comes out ahead of a lot of guys in the NFL right now. And I think that he's not Justin Fields. And I know he hasn't looked good, but I can confidently say that at least the Bears version of Justin Fields, because that dude right now is undefeated. So maybe we need to be a little nicer. But Caleb's fine. I mean, this is one that we're not going to know for sure if he's bad for at least a year. Then Keenan Allen's not playing. DeAndre Swift is he the worst running back in the NFL?
Oh, he's bad, dude. I mean, the tape on him is concerning.
He's horrible. I mean, so it's oh, look at all these shiny weapons and everything. See, this is what the media does to people. Mitch Trubisky was the number one MVP bet the year before he lost his job. Justin Fields was the number one MVP bet before it became very apparent that he can't play. And then it's Bears are going to the playoffs, Bears are winning the NFC and all this stuff. Stop focusing on the Midwest media, folks, the Midwest media giants. Just leave Chicago alone. Let them, he's going to be fine. There's one more rookie quarterback here, Brad.
Drake May.
I'm going to call Anthony Richardson a rookie. I know that doesn't count, but this dude hasn't played any game. And you said we were going to talk about him a little bit, so let's slide him in here. I mean, and for all intents and purposes, he's played less actual competitive football than these guys. He is in his second year, so he doesn't actually count. But there's no way we're getting through a show today without talking about this guy. Yeah, they won the game. That's what you could say about Anthony Richardson's performance, because, again, he doesn't look like he could hit water if he fell out of a boat. And then he does something where you go, oh, he's the only one in the NFL that can do this. And we talk about it all the time in our prospect breakdown. Accuracy is the only thing that you can't really be taught, right? Like your arm can get a little stronger. You can read defenses better, processing speed, all of that stuff. This dude can't hit the crossers. He can't hit the back. Michael Pittman Jr. is actively giving up right now. I don't know if are we getting Trey Lance?
Oh, I mean, listen, 11.2 rush yards total EPA, Tyson, negative 11.1 pass EPA. You take the legs out, and I know that's part of it. I mean, it's possible because the arm does not look good. He's not accurate enough, I don't think. Again, he's super raw, and we've harped on that before, and I don't want to make a judgment right now because he got hurt last year and everything like that. But you want to talk about a media hype and creation. It's one throw, and everybody's like, oh, God, imagine what he can do in this offense with 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. Well, how about we see it first? I mean, we got people saying he's going to be a top 10 QB. He played 4 games. Can we watch this guy play a little bit more? And we're seeing it. It's going to take some time. The question is, are the Colts going to be patient enough to let him develop? I mean, I think, Tyson, honestly, they had a little fool's gold last year when Gardner Minshew got them on the doorsteps of the playoff because he was familiar with the �11𝐬𝐫𝐞 thing. I don't think this defense is any good. You guys know how I feel about Gus Bradley and his cover 3. I don't think this is a playoff team. I didn't think so before the year. A lot of people thought they're going to win the division. I didn't think that was a chance in hell that was going to happen. And so we got to see here. I mean, you got to be patient because this looks like it's a project and it's going to take a couple years.
The Colts won the game. The Texans got bodied, and I've never been more sure that Houston's winning this division than I was on Sunday.
All right, let's get into marquee matchups and look ahead to the upcoming weekend in the National Football League. Tyson, we got to start with the Vikings and Packers. This is going to be a fun game. I mean, you got the 3-0 Vikings going on the road to face the 2-1 Packers. Not sure if it's going to be Malik Willis again or if Jordan Love's going to be back. I think it could be another week until he's back. But, I mean, geez, why would you rush him? Malik Willis has been awesome. 2 wins in a row for the guy. This looks completely under control. Matt LaFleur is an awesome coach, utilizing his legs. Doesn't look rushed. I mean, LaFleur is actually making Willis look like he's under control. Last year with the Titans, Malik Willis was panicking every single time he took a ball. It was nuts. And on the other side, oh my goodness gracious, what can you say about Kevin O'Connell that hasn't been said already? Sam Darnold looks like the MVP right now. He's been unbelievable. 657, 8 touchdowns, only 2 picks. They are 3-0. Everybody thought they were dead. People thought J.J. McCarthy was going to be the quarterback. Man, you got to be impressed with what's happening in Minnesota.
Absolutely. And I don't want this to happen, but I haven't heard it mentioned by anybody when we talk about the Vikings, especially Sam Darnold. He did this already. He did this in Carolina. They started out 3-0. He looked awesome. He had 6 rushing touchdowns. He was killing everybody. And by the middle of that season, it was like, oh, yeah, that's still Sam Darnold. That wasn't with Kevin O'Connell. That wasn't with a guy that took Josh Dobbs off a bus and won NFL football games, right? That wasn't with Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison's out. I don't care. I'm still, maybe too low on Jordan Addison as a player, but dude, they look awesome. What I'm most interested to see here, and this is the football sicko in me, I want to see Brian Flores heat up Malik Willis in a way that the Titans probably weren't able to see, hey, which part of this is real? Is this guy actually improved this much after being just around Matt LaFleur for like a month? Like he wasn't on the team all offseason, right? He walks in the door, he's starting games and winning. I want to see what this Brian Flores defense can do, because he made the San Francisco 49ers look bad. He just made CJ Stroud look bad. I mean, outside of some garbage time stats, they crushed the Texans, right? And so this is now is Minnesota going to go to 4-0? That's a huge storyline. I think this is like a big game because it's divisional, obviously. If you're the Packers, you're thrilled already. Like, you expected Jordan Love to be gone for 4 games, and if you could go 2-2, that's awesome. You're 2-0 already. Let's win another one here at home. But I'm more intrigued on the other side of the ball. I want to see this Vikings defense really try to get after Willis on the floor.
And yeah, that'll be the key here, because Vikings are 7th in EPA per play, Packers 8th in EPA per play. I mean, these two offensive masterminds, it's going to come down to the defense. I mean, Brian Flores is just awesome. 5th in EPA per play. And on the other side, I think Green Bay's starting to play a little bit better under Halfley. So they get in that system, 18th right now. So it's going to be a challenge. But I got to go advantage right now, Vikings, because of the Flores thing. We know how he can get after inexperienced QBs. Sunday Night Football, holy smokes, the juggernaut Buffalo Bills. Who would have thought that against the Baltimore Ravens, who seem to have some issues. Now, they kind of exercise the demons a little bit against the Cowboys, but they're still sitting at 1-2. The Bills, who's stopping this team, man? I mean, holy smokes. What do you know? You get Stephon Diggs out of the locker room, and all of a sudden everybody's eating on offense. Josh Allen, now the MVP favorite. Where do you stand first on the Bills, and we'll kind of break down this matchup as we go.
When I was watching Buffalo last night, it just kind of dawned on me the importance of a number 1 wide receiver in an offense, like a true one, like Diggs was, but also the downsides that can bring when you don't have like another target hog, because it got to a point in Buffalo, I'd say probably 2 years ago is really when it kicked in, but it was like, oh, they're just going to throw 15 times to Stephon Diggs, and then we only have to cover the other guys 20 times a game. We don't know who is going – like Dalton Kincaid is massively involved on the first drive the last 2 weeks, and then it's Dawson Knox, and then it's Khalil Shakir, and it's Keon Coleman, and maybe, just maybe, Josh Allen's as good as we thought he was. This wasn't a Diggs thing. This wasn't Joe Brady came in and fixed him, right? Or like all of the random Josh Allen takeaways people have had. This dude is playing like the best quarterback in football. I know that's sacrilegious, but, I mean, come on. What else do you want? He could have thrown for 9 touchdowns last night. The defense didn't have to break a sweat, and it's hard to say if that was Jacksonville, but they're going to have to, strap up the chin strap this week, because Baltimore found that running game that everyone was worried about before the year. What's it going to look like with Derrick Henry? It was a little bit less predictable. This week, it's still one of those things where, like, oh, Justice Hill's on the field. Justice Hill's getting the ball. We got to figure out a way around that. What is going on in Baltimore with target allocation? Mark Andrews how bad was that car accident that we didn't necessarily find out, or is this just Monken decided we don't need to use the All-Pro?
I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on in Baltimore with the offense, with Todd Monken. It just feels like they're still trying to work through some things. I thought they were going to try to save Derrick Henry, but they can't win without him right now. I mean, they need him to win football games. I know we love where you love Lamar on this podcast. I still have my doubts a little bit. It's hard for me to still be like the Lamar doubter when he has 2 MVPs, but in high leverage situations, he hasn't got it done. I think it's because he's just not ever going to be that good of a thrower. Tyson, they lead the NFL in most blown fourth quarter leads since 2021. It's because I don't think he can accurately move the chains. Like when you need a big throw, it's just there's just another possession out there. Team gets another possession. And it's just always like instead of being able to salt away these games. So I'm always going to be a little hesitant when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens. And when they started to go bring in Monken and go to a passing attack, that concerned me. Tyson, my issue for this thing is I don't know how the Baltimore Ravens offensive line is going to hold up. I mean, every single year we talk about the Buffalo Bills, like who's going to get after the passer? Well, Von Miller, it feels like it's always in the big moments. Like this guy is resurrected, being injury prone the past 2 years. He's not starting. He just finishes. Like that's what he is. He's Mariano Rivera. He comes in and he gets the big sack. This is the 6th best defense in EPA per play. Tyson, the sack percentage that they have, it is 7.3%. And that's when they are up on teams. Like the other teams are constantly throwing. Like they are getting after the passer. I don't know how the Ravens are going to be able to stop them. Maybe you can do it, like you said, by running the football. Bills going to have to bring the physicality, but we're talking about this defense like, oh, they're missing so many pieces. We got to give our hats off to Sean McDermott with the Bills. I mean, man, he's taken a lot of shit recently because of the playoff thing, but holy smokes, the guy can coach defense.
This is crazy because this feels like the Ravens go to 1-3 after what we saw, on Sunday. I know they look good against the Cowboys for most of the game. If they go to 1-3, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers maybe walking away with the North here by the trade deadline.
Well, I got to say, this is why I think the Bengals aren't dead, man. Steelers are a house of cards. It's going to come crumbling. I'm telling you.
We need it.
Last matchup here. Where is it on okay. Seahawks at Lions. This is a Monday Night Football. We're doing a dual Monday night again. First, I want to get your thoughts on that. I love it, dude, because imagine if it was just Jags-Bills like it sometimes is, where it's a blowout. At least we had 2 games. I saw people complaining, how are we supposed to pay attention to 2 games? Like, what are you talking about? There's 8 games on Sunday. This is a modern age. If you can't hack it, then you should. This isn't a game for you anymore. You got to catch up. But I love it. 2 games.
Be nice to my grandma, man. She just wants to watch football. But the 2 inputs it is awesome, and being able to switch back and forth. I mean, we were both kind of sweating some ETN plays last night, so I had to hate watch that Jaguars game longer than I wanted to, which turned out to be all the way to the end because that's how Doug decides to divvy things up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I think this is the show next Monday. I'm not super interested in anything Tennessee Titans related right now, but this game in particular. First of all, are the Lions good? Like, can we get an answer on that from them, preferably? And what does this offense look like? Sam Laporta, like, does Brock Wright just walk in and it's the same offense, or what exactly is going to happen? And then on the flip side, dude, I kind of like what Ryan Grubb has going on over here in Seattle. And I know I was too high on Zach Charbonnet coming out of UCLA, and he still doesn't look necessarily like he can run the football. But once him and Kenneth Walker are the 2-headed monster in the backfield, and you figured out how to allocate these targets, goes back to kind of my rant a little bit ago. Mike McDonald was just swept under the rug with all these other hires because he's a defensive guy. Who cares about a defensive guy? This team is hitting, dude. They're flying around. They're physical. And Geno is Geno. I think he's closer to – he looks right now closer to the guy that took over for Russ than he did a year ago. But I think if you're a Seattle fan, you're very, very intrigued. But the reason why this game is interesting to me is, like, this should be a Lions smash spot. They have to eventually come out here and just – I know they put up 30 points, but it didn't feel real, right? It was like it's the Cardinals, and it's gross, and the offense still doesn't look like it's rolling. Run the ball, win the game. Everything they did a year ago was predicated off of running the football, and this year it feels like, man, let's just let Goff throw this thing 55 times.
I wish they would have scored 30 points last week, Tyson. They only scored 20. You know how I know? Because I needed them to score 30 points so I could hit my over. We'll get in that later in the week. But they scored 20 in the first half, 0 in the second. It was unbelievable. I'll go on a rant on that later this week. It was ridiculous. But I have serious concerns about this Lions team. And you ask about the Sam Laporta, is Brock Wright going to step in and be a no big deal? Of course, they don't target Sam Laporta anymore. I guess the guy is just freaking a blocker. Like, he might as well be a left tackle. It's unbelievable. I've never seen an offensive identity change from one year to the other the way that this has happened. Now, I don't know if they're
when worked already.
When it worked, yeah, it's not like it was like, man, our offense sucks, we got to figure something out. It was like, we're scoring 40 a game and people are trying to be us. Like, instead of doing that again, it was like, I'm kind of out and maybe we should do something. Now, I will say, maybe they're trying new things. Can we do stuff, practice stuff for later in the year when we maybe can't run the high-scoring games? That's always a possibility. This is a really long season. We don't want to overreact to 3 data points. But, oh, boy, Jared Goff looks different than he did last year. This running game, sure, Montgomery, 23, 105, a tud. I still think they need to give Jahmyr Gibbs more touches.
Absolutely.
He's just more explosive. I think you can give Montgomery maybe 16, Jahmyr Gibbs 10 out of the backfield and give him the ball 5 times. Do something with those target share. But, you know, in terms of offense, who would have thought that Detroit would have been 16th in the league, Seahawks would have been 17th in the league when it comes to EPA, and they both have on the year had 0 on EPA per play. Like, it's just an average offense. Like, it's a definition of. And defensively, you got to shout out Mike McDonald, already a top 10 defense in EPA per play, negative 0.13. The guy's really good. This defense looks fast. We already knew they were long, and just the way that he's able to utilize them, I think it's going to make it tough on these quarterbacks going forward. I mean, that's for sure. The way that he has utilized speed and the length of his secondary, it's going to be tough. So it should be a Lions game, man. I mean, at home, you stay in the dome. I just don't know how good the Seahawks are, but whoo, boy, we've been saying that for the Lions a lot.
Detroit's been in a dome like this whole season. It feels like, and Jared Goff just can't play. I mean, there's a chance that, you know, week 7, week 8, we're having the same Jared Goff convo that we just had about like the Trevor Lawrence thing. And look, Goff looks fine right now, but it's like, you paid him a bunch of money, and this is the immediate return on investment, and maybe he'll figure it out. But I am nervous as hell about the Detroit Lions.
Feels like that's happened a lot recently. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, now Jared Goff. Jordan Love gets hurt.
Tua is out. In 3 years, when, you know, they're all the 25th through 32nd highest paid quarterback, where they're going to go, and you gave CJ Stroud all that money, and you gave Andy Richardson all that money.
All right, teams, some Eagles fans, start extending your young quarterbacks and giving him more than Jalen Hurts, and all of a sudden he can rise up and he'll be back to what it was when we went to the Super Bowl. All right, anything else you want to close on here, Tyson?
I don't think so. I think it was this was a blowout week of football. There was a handful of close games is all, and some of them were only close if you're looking at box scores. Oh, we didn't even talk about – shout out Andy Dalton. Shout out the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, yeah.
Huge win. It just kind of cements that, like, I mean, we've been sitting here being like, I think they have good players. Like, what's going on? We've been saying that for a year, and he comes in an immediate 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, shout out Andy, and we're looking forward to that revenge game next week against the Bengals.
Like, subscribe, and share the show on the way out, ladies and gentlemen. Smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Stay subscribed. We got a ton of content. College football recap coming later this week. Make sure you stay tuned to that. We'll talk to you guys then. Peace.